name's Colleen and I'm an educator at the St. Louis Art Museum. Welcome to Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about shapes. We'll start by reading a story together, then we'll be looking at some art from the museum's collection, and we'll end by making our own art together. Feel free to pause the video at any time if you'd like to get a closer look, if you'd like to talk about something with the people that you're with, or if you need to gather some art supplies. Are you ready? Let's get started. Today we're going to be reading a story called Perfect Square. If you've joined me for Wednesday before, you may know that when I read a new book, I like to take a look at the cover to see if I can find out some things about the story before I read. Let's take a look at this cover together. What do you notice? I notice a few different clues on this cover. I see this wiggly line here that kind of looks like a smile to me. And I notice that the cover of the book is all red. And I also notice that the shape of this book is a square. What do you think the story might be about based on what we can see? Let's find out. Perfect Square by Michael Hall. Now, when we're reading our story today, we're going to need some paper to work with. It can be any kind of paper, any shape, any size, any color. Your recycling bin is a great place to look for that kind of paper. So I just have a plain piece of paper here that I'm going to use while we read our story today. It was a perfect square. It had 4 matching corners and 4 equal sides. Let's count the sides of this square together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's count the corners together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great job. And it was perfectly happy. How can you tell that the square is happy? But on Monday, the square was cut into pieces and poked full of holes. It wasn't perfectly square anymore. So it made itself into a fountain that babbled and giggled and clapped. On Tuesday, the square was torn into scraps. What new shapes can you see that were created from that square? Let's get out our paper now. And let's tear some of our paper into scraps, just like they did in the story. You take your paper and you just rip. That feels really good. You can rip them into any kind of pieces that you want. What shapes did you make from your paper scraps? I made a few different shapes with mine. Let's keep going. So it made itself into a garden. On Wednesday, the square was shredded in strips. Let's take our paper again and shred into some strips. Do you have some strips with your paper? Let's keep going. So it made itself into a park. On Thursday, the square was shattered. Sometimes when I'm reading a book, I like to predict what's going to happen on the next page. What do you think is going to happen next based on what we've already read? So it made itself into a bridge. On Friday, the square was snipped into ribbons. So it made itself into a river. On Saturday, the square was crumpled and ripped and wrinkled. Let's do some of that with our paper. So you're going to crumple, rip, and crinkle. How does your paper look different now? Let's keep going. So it made itself into a mountain. On Sunday, the square waited to see what was next. It waited and waited. Nothing happened. Its 4 equal sides were confining. Its 4 matching corners were rigid and cramped. How do you think the square might be feeling now? So it made itself into a window. What do you think you might be able to see outside of that window? That looked out on a mountain that gave birth to a river that was crossed by a bridge that led to a park that was home to a garden that had at its center a fountain. That babbled and giggled and clapped. The end. I invite you to think about your favorite part of the story and talk about that with the people that you're with. We're going to travel to the museum now to look at some works of art. Let's imagine how we might get there. Are you going to take a kite that's shaped like a triangle? Are you going to take a raft down a river that's shaped like a rectangle? Or are you going to get in an inner tube that's shaped like a circle? So you decide how you'd like to go. Once you've decided, if you'd like, you can close your eyes and imagine yourself going. Woo! Ooh, that was a really exciting journey. I'm really glad that we made it. In order to get ready to look at our works of art, we're going to be doing an experience I'm calling our Mindfulness Minute. Mindfulness is taking the time to slow down and really pay attention to what you're doing. Since we're talking about shapes today, we're going to be using shapes to help us do a breathing exercise. Are you ready? Let's take a look at this triangle together. Let's count the sides. 1, 2, 3. Great job. Now, while we're looking at this triangle, we're going to breathe in, we're going to hold, and then we're going to breathe out. And we're going to do each of those things for a count of 3, just like the 3 sides on this triangle. So you can watch my finger as I move along the sides to help us know what to do. Okay? Let's try that together. We're going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3. Hold for 1, 2, 3. And breathe out for 1, 2, 3. Let's try that again. And you can follow my finger this time. Breathe in. Hold. And out. Awesome. Let's try that with a different shape. Do you know what shape this is? Let's count the sides of this square together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do the same breathing exercise that we did with our triangle, only this time we're going to do it with the square. And instead of holding and breathing for a count of 3, we're going to hold and breathe for a count of 4 because we have 4 sides to our square. Are you ready? And for the last part of our square, instead of we're going to breathe in, hold, breathe out, we're going to relax our shoulders for the last side. Okay? Let's try that together. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4. Relax those shoulders 1, 2, 3, 4. Great job. Let's do that again together, and this time you can follow my finger to know what to do. Okay? Breathe in. Hold. Out. Relax those shoulders. Great job. I feel much more ready to look at some really amazing works of art. We're going to look at some works of art from the museum's collection together. If you'd like, you can scroll down on the page to get a closer look at the images we'll be viewing. Feel free to pause the video at any time to do this. Take a close look at this work of art. What do you see? What shapes can you find? Let's zoom in to get a closer look. What shapes can you see now? Choose a shape in this work of art. See if you can make that shape with your body. You can use your hands, arms, or legs, or a combination. This is a blanket by a Diné artist from the southwest region of the United States. It was woven with yarn made from wool, and its design contains patterns, which are repeating shapes. What shapes do you see repeated here? See if you can count the repeated shapes. Let's see how another artist created art inspired by shapes. Take a look at this work of art. What do you notice? How is this work of art different from the last work of art we looked at together? How is it the same? Let's zoom in to get a closer look. What new details can you see now that we have a different view? This work of art also has a pattern containing shapes. What shape do you see repeated here? This collage is by an artist named Alonzo Davis. It's called Rocksteady. Alonzo Davis created it by weaving paper strips together and then painting them. He was inspired by Native American weavings like the one we just viewed together. This interest led him to create a series of woven paintings that he called his blanket series. Where do you see repeated shapes in your everyday life? Maybe there are polka dots on your clothes, or rectangles that make up a fence outside, or squares in the sidewalk. If you'd like, you can think about searching for repeating shapes in your home or outside with the people that you're with. Now that we looked at some works of art, let's travel back home so we can make our own art. So hop on your kite that's shaped like a triangle, or get in your raft that's shaped like a rectangle, or get in that inner tube that's shaped like a circle, and let's head home. For our art making project today, we are going to be making our own paper weavings. To start, we're going to need a few different materials. So you'll need one piece of larger paper. It doesn't really matter what size it is, but as long as you have a pretty good size sheet of paper. And it can be any color, it can have writing on it, it can be recycled, doesn't matter. Then we'll want some other paper that we can cut or rip into strips. So I have some colored paper here. I have some paper from newspapers and magazines and the mail. so it doesn't matter what color or where that comes from. Then we're going to need scissors, tape or glue, and then if you have some drawing materials that you'd like to use, you can use anything, pencils, crayons, or markers. I'm going to use colored pencils today. So to begin our paper weaving, we're going to need to make our loom, which is going to be what we're going to weave our paper strips into. So to do that, you're going to take your sheet of paper in whatever size or form it's in, and you're going to fold it. And it doesn't matter which way you fold it. This is just an easy way to get the loom part created. So you're gonna fold your sheet of paper, and then you're gonna take your scissors, or if you're ripping, you can rip it too, and you're gonna wanna cut on the part that you folded. So not the open part, but the part that has the crease. And I'm just gonna cut slits all the way down my paper until I get to the end. So I don't wanna cut all the way through, but just until I leave a little bit of room. And you can space these however long or short you want, doesn't matter. So now see, I have these kind of wiggly parts that I can weave through. So I'm just going to keep cutting until I go through my whole sheet of paper. And you might need a grown-up's help to do this part, and that's okay. And your lines don't have to be perfectly straight or even. And now when I open it, I'm gonna have my loom that I can weave my paper through. So I'll leave this like this, and now we're going to need our paper strips. That's the next part. So I cut a few already, but I'm definitely gonna need some more to weave through my loom. So I have some colored paper, so I might cut up more of these. And what you can think about when you're making your paper strips or deciding what paper to use for your weaving is how long you want them to be. So my loom isn't super long, but you want your strips to be as long as your loom. They can be longer because then you can kind of wrap them around, or you can cut off the ends, which we'll go over all that. So I'm going to cut a few more strips here out of my colored paper. And you can do paper weaving with lots of different things and so many different kinds of paper. So I thought this was just an ad from the newspaper. And when you cut it up, see, it doesn't even really matter what kind of writing or pictures on it because you're not gonna see all that. You'll just see different colors and maybe you'll get some letters in there, but that's the fun part. So I know I always say this, but the best materials to use are the ones that you already have at home. So don't worry about what you have. You can do paper weaving with literally any kind of paper. So I have some strips from that newspaper. Now I'll maybe use some of my magazine paper to get some different colors. And that's what's fun about using paper from all different kinds of sources, is you get different colors and designs on them, as opposed to just using colored paper or plain paper. And you can also rip your paper too, and that's going to make a different kind of line on the end of your paper. So that one wasn't long enough, but I can try again. It's always good to keep trying, even if it doesn't work out the first time you do it. So here, this one's working out much better. So I've got a nice paper strip there. I'll maybe do another one like that. All right, let's start weaving. So I've got all my paper strips here, so I can kind of leave them in a pile so I know what I have. And now for the weaving part, this is where it gets really fun. So when you're doing paper weaving, you can decide how you want to weave your paper through your loom here. So you could go under, over, under, over, under, over, like that. Or you could do something different. So you could do 2 under, 1 over, 2 under again, 1 over. Or you can just do it any way that you want. It doesn't even have to follow a pattern, so you can kind of just see what happens. So this one, I just kind of weaving it through, see what happens. And then you'll notice you'll get different parts of your paper strip peeking out from your loom. So you can decide how you want to do it.
And you get lots of opportunities because you can fill up your whole loom with paper strips. So here, I'm gonna do this one over, under. And now, since that's through my loom, I can just kind of push it towards the top. And then I can move on to my next piece of paper. So I'm gonna use some of my recycled paper here. And for this one, I think I might do something different. So instead of going under first, I'm gonna go over first. And it might take a couple tries before you kind of get the hang of it. And you can always ask a grown-up for help. And there's no right or wrong way to do paper weaving. You can create any kind of patterns that you like. And remember, a pattern is just a repeated design. And you can think about getting inspired by some of the weavings that we saw in the artwork. So we saw a weaving made from wool yarn, and we also saw a paper weaving too. So there's that one. So now let's try something else. Ooh, and this has blue. I kind of like that color. So for this one, I might do just kind of whatever happens. So I might just kind of play around with it and see what different colors and shapes come through. And you want to keep pushing your paper up at the top. And you can kind of look to see what paper you have and what you think you might like next to each other. And if you don't like the way that you did one of your strips, you can always take it out and do it again. All right, let's use some of my blue paper since I kind of like that blue here. And I think this one I might do kind of just whatever happens instead of doing over, under, over, under. Maybe I'll do some more yellow. And this time maybe I'll try to do it the same way that I did it up at the top. So it looked like I started with under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. I think I only have room for maybe a couple more strips here. So look through my paper to see which ones I like. Oh, I like this ripped one with the trees. Maybe I'll do the opposite of what I did last time. So maybe I'll start over, under, over, under, over, under, over, and under. Oh, maybe I don't have room for any more. And then once you kind of feel like you have enough, you can kind of space them out however you'd like. And then we can glue or tape them down so that they stay put. So you'll notice that my paper strips were a little bit longer than my loom, which is fine. You can either cut them or you can glue them and wrap them around the back. So you can decide how you want to do it. I think I might just cut mine today. Or maybe I'll cut this side and I'll wrap the other ones so you can see what that's like too. Or if you like to leave them hanging, you can do that too. So for these, I'm just gonna take them and put a little glue on the end and then just fold them over. And that way they'll stay put too. And since I cut these, I might just put a little glue on the end here on this side so that my paper strips don't go anywhere. I might do that on this side too. Cool. Now you can think about doing some drawing on top of your weaving if you'd like to do that. So I have some colored pencils here, and I was thinking about the paper weaving that we saw in the art and how that artist decided to draw on top, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So you can think about drawing on top of yours if you'd like, or coloring to add some new kind of shapes, textures, and I notice I have lots of squares in my paper weaving today. Maybe I'll add some stripes, some lines. I'll think about some wavy lines too. And you can just kind of experiment and see what you like, what you don't like. Maybe I'll make some new shapes. Have some triangles. Maybe some circles. And maybe a rectangle here. You can make patterns with your drawings too. Or do some repeating designs. I'll work with a new color. I like those circles. I might add a few more circles. And now I'm just kind of doing some drawing, adding some more lines. So that is going to be our paper weaving project.
Thank you for joining me today here at We Wednesday. We hope you had fun. I wanted to show you another example of a paper weaving that I made. So this is the example that we made together, that I used my colored paper to make my loom, and I used lots of different kinds of paper to weave with. I also made another weaving using only recycled materials from my recycling bin, and when I was finished with my weaving, I decided to cut it into a new shape, so I cut it into a circle. So that's another option. You don't have to leave it in the shape of your loom. You can cut it into a new shape. So there's lots of different ways to do paper weaving and so many different materials that you can use. We would love to see your weavings. Please share them with us on social media. You can use the hashtags STL Art Museum and We Wednesday. We hope to see you next time. Keep on creating. Bye.